Hello and welcome to Beyond the Guidelines. This is the podcast that takes you past the listings, the programs, and the polished sales talk, and it really reveals the people shaping today's real estate world. Here we uncover the personal stories, the struggles, and the wins that define each guest, giving you a fresh human perspective on the business. I'm Jason, and I'm on a mission to help you see the person behind the professional, because real estate isn't just about deals, it's about connection. So today's guest is someone we're really excited to introduce you to, not just for what they've accomplished in the market, but for their drive, values, and vision behind their success. So I've personally known this person for, well over 10 years now. We've seen everything in the real estate transaction. We've done plenty of deals together. Please welcome my friend and business partner, Susana Vazquez. Susana, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jason. I'm really excited.
Are you saying anything?
I am. Can you hear me?
Awesome.
I want to say thank you. I'm really excited.
Great. So before we get started, if you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Well, you all know Susana Vazquez. I now have my own brokerage, and it's Susana Real Estate, Team Layman. I started this brokerage about a year ago, so I'm very excited, very motivated to make this work. I have been in the real estate business for a little bit over 14 years. I like to say I was probably the first, or a couple of the first bilingual real estate agents that got started back then, and it's something that I enjoy doing, and I think that's what it's kept me in this industry.
Yeah, and we have that similar connection because we both just kind of went on our own, so we see our own struggles and challenges there. So my first question to you is, what drew you into real estate initially, and what's kept you in it over the years with all this crazy changing going on?
So I got started in real estate because my husband and I wanted to start investing in real estate. So we were buying and flipping homes. We had a business partner back then, but it was really a struggle because finding an agent that's willing to help you regardless of the price point that you're looking. We all know investment properties can be somewhat in the cheap side. So we had trouble finding someone that was willing to stick with us and help us. They were ready to close the deal, and that was it. So that motivated me to get my real estate license, help my husband out. And he said, hey, we can go out, look at them whenever you want. And we're pretty much on our own time. We don't have to be calling, hey, can we meet you? Yada, yada. So we did that for about a year. So that's when I got my license, and then we started flipping. So I was buying and selling. That was good for us.
Yeah.
And so I got to see that part of being a consumer or someone needing the service of someone, and because of the price point that they were looking, either not have that attention, that you need because it's something that you want to do. So that kept me motivated, and I started helping buyers, buy their first home or their first investment, and regardless if it was a $30,000 or $1 million home, they got the same service. And I think that's also what's kept me in this industry, and a lot of my clients tend to refer me, so that's good.
Yeah, and so I'm the same way, right? So 100% of my business is referrals, and I think that's what's really kept me in this business over the years is that reward that you get, right, when you help someone. And it really doesn't matter the size because it always comes back to you. I'm a big believer in like what you put out, you get back. And so I love to hear that from you. I don't know if you remember this, but I think I closed one of your investment deals with your husband. I think that was one of the first times I've ever met you. You probably don't remember. But it had to have been about 14 or 15 years ago.
Yes.
It was a smaller home. It was an investment property that you guys had. So it's just funny. You just jogged my memory about that.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, and I do remember, Jason, because we have gone a long way.
Yeah.
I really enjoy working with you. You got the great personality that a lot of people really enjoy. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You've definitely helped us sell our home and then buy.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back to when you first started. So kind of a good question, I think, is to ask you is, was there a moment early in your career that fundamentally shaped how you approach the business today?
So, yes. I guess one of the situations is understanding that you're a real estate agent and you're helping the consumer or the person buy their home, or sell their home. But also you're not just there for support, but also you are there to give solution to their problem, or any outcome that may come. One of the things that I've learned out of this, and that I lost this transaction, is because I tell them, hey, we got to negotiate repairs, and versus what they want versus what's needed, the safety and hazardous of inspections and getting request repairs. It's not just what they want. It's like, hey, this is really what makes sense. This is what really needs to happen. Um, I'm giving them a solution to this, and then at the end, it didn't work out because I wasn't very transparent with that. Like saying, "Hey, you can't ask to have, the color of the wall painted, or something
Right.
really basic, very simple." And so I guess that's
Yeah, so just kind of learning the ins and outs of like maybe problem solving and negotiating for your clients because,
yes,
like you, I work with a lot of first time home buyers, and a lot of first time home buyers, sometimes we assume because we've been in the business so long that everyone knows what we're talking about.
right,
If I
yes,
start spitting out amortization schedules and seller credits and, splitting attorney and title, they're like, whoa, I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to bring up because, we always have to remember that not everybody knows what our job entails, and we're not order takers, we're problem solvers. So we want
right.
to go out and make sure that we're solving their problems, answering issues, understanding the legality of everything. So yeah,
Hmm.
I love that. I love that answer. So we both love the real estate industry. We've been in it for a while. My question to you is, if you weren't in real estate, what in the world do you think you would be doing and why?
So before becoming a real estate agent, I worked in the sales. I was a salesperson. I sold cell phones. I sold whatever.
You sold
um,
cell phones? I did not know that about you.
yes, I back in where Nextel, the radios and the walkie-talkies and Singular was very popular. I was a salesperson,
Yeah.
and and I mean, my husband and I've always been a business person, so he's always seemed to find a way, to get me involved in his business. So I think I would just be more involved in his side of, or in his world, which is, right now what he does. He does forestry mulching. I think I'd just be more involved in that than
Yeah.
in real estate. Hmm.
So really just staying on the entrepreneurial side, staying on the problem solving side, getting business, being able to speak to clients. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, I love it. I
Hmm.
love it.
Hmm.
So we have seen a lot of changes. And so I know being in the business as long as we both have, we've seen the crashes, we've seen the elevated interest rates now lately in the market. We see political uncertainty. There's a lot of things that are changing. One of the biggest things that we see changing is technology.
Right.
So there's a lot of technological advances, and I feel like a lot of people can potentially be left behind if they don't learn new technology, learn how to at least how to utilize AI and those sorts of things. But
Hmm.
how do you see technology shaping our industry? Like, let's say short term, and then maybe over the next 5 years, do you see a bunch of changes, differences, or what's your take on that?
I do. I think just going to make it more easier for consumers to purchase a home, make it more transparent. I know with the AI, a lot of us are starting to learn this new program, and also with virtual tours. They'll be able to see homes prior to go out and showing. So, I mean, I think that's definitely the new generation. They're not more of a person to person. They're more like, let's get it done through, a message or a virtual tour. So I think that's kind of interesting to me, but it's at some point also a little scary.
Sure.
Um, But I just see, I mean, we have to evolve and just get better.
Yeah, it is crazy to see like all the robots online, and now I don't even know what's real anymore. Like there's
Yeah.
AI generated videos where I can't tell if this person's really saying something, and it's getting better and better and better. But I think
Hmm.
there is some, benefit to it in the sense that if we can use it in our business to kind of do the same thing, we're still solving problems and we're still doing things, but maybe we can do it a lot faster. We have information that we can get a lot quicker. We could also use AI to kind of put things together for us that normally would maybe take us several hours that it can do in 20 or 30 minutes. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's a blessing. It could be a blessing and a curse.
Mhm.
I don't think
I agree.
and Pandora is already out of the box. So like where do we know where things are going? I think time will just tell. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to kind of a difficult question. This is almost like when you go apply for a job and they ask you, tell me about your failures. But I think it's important in this business because let's face it, as you do transactions, you can really only learn by doing them and making mistakes on your own. I call it falling forward, kind of learning as you go. And so
Mhm.
would you mind sharing maybe a failure, or maybe not a failure, but maybe just a challenge that you had to go through that really ended up teaching you, how to be a better realtor, or maybe that you came out on the other side better because of it?
Yes, and it's a situation where you overpromise a client something, and it comes back to just being transparent and honest. Overpromising in the situation where in a listing appointment say, yeah, I can list it at whatever you want. We'll make it where we'll sell it, and then it didn't sell. So if it doesn't sell, who looks bad?
Yeah.
um and and that to me was something that really because you're trying to understand their story, you're trying to understand what they want. And one time you were there in that same position, you're like an investor or selling a home, you're like, I want $1 million for my home, I think that's what it's worth. But then the reality is, you're the expert, you're the one that knows. And we have all the tools to make those right decisions for our clients. And that's been an eye opening. Like, no, it just have to be, they know what they want, but you're the expert. So just
Yeah, I love that. I love that because there are real estate agents that are order takers when they just say, "Oh, you want to list your house for this much? Okay, we'll do that." And then it
yeah,
turns out to be a nightmare. And what happens? They probably end up going back to you because what you said. How many times have you said, "Oh, that house isn't going to sell for more than whatever," and then you see it and it sells for that much, or you know.
right.
The other thing I think I'll add to that that's pretty interesting is so like for me as a lender, I have to be very, very careful on how I say things. I'll give you an
Mhm.
example. We had a deal that just went perfect. It was a first time home buyer. They didn't know any better. My processor, like they didn't know how hard we had to work to get to where we
Yeah.
were, but everything went great. We get to the closing, and this was actually a closing this week where my processor said, "Yeah, you need to get a cashier's check. I think it'll be about $5." Well, I think the bank ended up charging them like 15 or $20, and they got mad at us.
Wow.
And it was just one of those weird things where we just have to be careful on how we
Yeah.
present things. We got to make sure, like, that has nothing to do with us, but yet they got upset about those kind of things. And so we want to be very careful on, like, how to explain to customers in a way that if I tell them, like, hey, your house isn't going to sell for that, you could say, well, let's take a look at these comps. Let's kind of look at where the market's going. And you become more of a teacher than an order taker. And I think people
Right.
respect you more for that.
Oh,
Would
yeah,
you
for
agree?
sure. I
Yeah.
agree. And
Yeah.
and some will appreciate your honesty and some may not. And it's okay, but it's just you feeling good about yourself, knowing you did your homework, you did what you had to do, and you explained. And if they're not wanting to
Yeah.
take your advice, I see it like when they go to the doctor, you don't go telling them what you have. It's like, wait a minute, this is what's going on. And the doctor says, well, this is what you have, and this
Yeah.
is what you have to do to get better. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that to me, like, well,
Yeah. It's a great analogy. So, yeah, we want to be authentic and honest over transactions and sales
right,
because it always does come back. So, short term, you can make a lot of money. I've seen people come in and out of this business,
right,
and they're in when it's good, and when it gets challenging, it's a tough thing to navigate. So, speaking of which, so I think like in this industry too, it's so fast paced and so ever dynamic that sometimes we feel maybe burned out or get stuck
Mhm.
What do you do when you kind of get to a point where you just feel burnout and it's such a, it's such a grueling business? Like, how do you get out of that stuck moment in a sense? Like when you're burnout and just like, man, I'm putting it all in and I need a timeout.
Well, first I take a shot of tequila. And then um no, I take time with my family. I think that's what, just it kind of calms me down, and just do something fun, maybe go out to dinner. We love hiking. It's something that we did when COVID. It was just, and we try to do that again just because it relaxes you and just kind of pushes that reset button for you and say, okay, this is why I'm doing it. My family, and this is my big why.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and you're no good if you don't take a break, right? I always like to take that analogy as like when you have a laptop open, if you
Hmm.
leave that
Hmm.
thing open for 4 or 5 weeks and never shut it down and restart it, what happens? It starts to break. So that off
Right.
button every once in a while and just take a break
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
remember your why. I think your why is one of the most important things. For me, it's my family. It's also my legacy, what I want to leave behind, and I want to be remembered as someone that made a positive impact in our, not just in my career, but in my community, in my family, and beyond. So
Yeah.
I think one of the important questions that I wanted to ask you is like, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind in this industry?
Well, I do hope people remember me as an honest, um, and a person that loved to help, not just selling homes, because since I joined Team Layman about 2 years ago now, I've learned a lot from my broker, and I'm gotten more involved with the community. So I'm now a member of Main Street Montevallo. It's a non-profit organization that helps local businesses in town. So shopping, eating local, to help them stay. I think that's very important, and it says a lot, and I just don't want them to see, oh, she used to sell houses, but now, but she used to care for us, for the community, and then so assisting in some of the Shelby Emergency Assistance, which is also a nonprofit organization here in town, looking helping people that are in distress, in need. Um, so it's just a people person, and honest, and also very treat people with respect. I think that's gotten me um where I am now, and I just want people to kind of remember me that way, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we need more people like you in this industry, right? We want to have good real estate agents, even if they're on the competition side, right? Even if you're going against someone, we want someone with morals, with values, with integrity, someone that represents our industry well. And that
Yeah.
goes the same for the loan officer as well on my side. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and I keep myself, just stay ethical, ethic, do the right thing. Don't try to cut corners, because like you said, that can only go so long, so far, for so long. So
yeah,
if you're just an honest person, you'll make it through this business, and people
yeah.
will definitely appreciate that from you. So
Yeah. And I think there's also like an attractiveness, like kind of become a magnet. Like if you ever been around someone that's always happy and always outgoing, you tend to brighten up the room when you have someone there. I
yeah,
want to be that guy, right? I want to
yeah,
be the guy that says, man, that guy's happy. Like that guy, I want to attract the positivity.
oh
It's
yeah,
hard to be around people that are negative and also be around people that just don't do business well,
right,
because it kind of brings me down. It's a little depressive in a sense because, what do we represent as as an industry? What are we
mhm,
doing to move the ball in the right direction? So I think collectively we need to be not only looking at what we're doing, but kind of collectively, attracting and having that magnetic approach that other people, want to do business the way you do. And as, a successful realtor like yourself, we start to become someone that people look up to, that maybe are just starting out. And so I think that's an important role that we both may be able to play, just to kind of show, hey, where are we going in this industry? How are you able to do this? And what can I do to be, kind of emulate what you're doing? And I think you've said some really, really great ideas on, or what you're doing in the industry. I think is just fantastic.
Yes, thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
We try, right?
We do. Hey, you know what? I'm not always like that, right? Sometimes, but I usually close my door when I need to break something.
Yeah.
That's my tequila is just walking away and being in solitude and just taking a breath and be like, oh, Lord Jesus.
Right.
Let me breathe and help me react the right way. Well, Susana, again, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We really appreciate your insight, and we look forward to continue our business relationship with you and kind of watch you grow as you continue to be successful, not in just your industry, but as a person. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jason. I really do.
Awesome. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.